9:35 now here on Delaware. I'm Peter MacArthur. Well, not so cool. America's job market recovery hits a bump in the road. Another 853,000 Americans filing for first-time unemployment benefits last week. It's the largest number of claims since mid-September. Now, if you listen to the show on any kind of regular basis, you know we bring in Chris Burkhart, Placer Staffing in Newark, to talk about jobs-related issues. And Chris, a good morning to you.
Pete, happy Thursday as always.
Yes, thank you. It's been a few since we talked. What are your thoughts on this new jobs report and really the overall labor market situation we find ourselves in right now?
I think it's a good question as we kind of wrap up the most interesting year of 2020. So I see jobs in the labor market as the sort of tale of two markets. Mm-hmm. And it really depends on your perspective, on an employer's perspective, leadership's perspective. So are you seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, or are you getting conservative over the next few months? For example, in the Delaware marketplace, we see firms, organizations that can't meet their demand, e-commerce, healthcare, sales, customer service. Yet that opposite tale is that there are fresh layoffs happening. I mean, we're talking about the spike in claims. That only happens when there's layoffs. I do see those layoffs happening for two reasons, though, Pete. One, it's in reaction to the recent restrictions. It's direct correlation. If you're in a restaurant right now and you went for 60 to 30%, mm-hmm. you have nothing to do with those people. You have no choice. So that is temporary, and I know we want to put, what's the good side of this? That is temporary because there's a positive light at the end of the tunnel. On the other side of it, consumers and the way we buy and behave have shifted in so many industries, and those layoffs are more permanent. Airlines, for example, or hospitality, these are more permanent cuts, and we'll talk about that as we talk about other questions and how the workforce might react to that.
Let me give you a two-parter here because I think it's really interesting, and I think as time goes on, it becomes more relevant to the discussion. You have a situation here. It's about the health situation, and that is at fault for the job market and the shift changes to unemployment. But could there be still, Chris, a stigma that someone has been out of work for a prolonged amount of time this year? Okay, that's kind of part one. And what advice would you give for someone who's still trying to get back into the job market, even though they might have been laid off at the beginning of the pandemic now several months ago and haven't been able to find a position?
It's a really terrific question. And just to give your audience an idea of what we're talking about in terms of scale and magnitude, there are almost 4 million Americans who have been unemployed for more than 27 weeks. That's more than 6 months. That's up from late summer, September, and it's the most in almost a decade. And that's almost 40% of everyone that's unemployed. So we're talking about a large group of people. That's a large segment. So there's lots of reasons for this and thoughts around this. But during traditional downturns, during recessions, job markets are pretty tough on the long-term unemployed. And you're really talking about the stigma associated with that. And here's the working theory is this. The thought is for employers that skills erode when they're not used over time and that this is considered a blemish on your resume. Pete, you're interviewing two candidates, someone who was laid off 2 weeks ago, someone who was laid off in March. The thought is that there's judgments made about there must be reasons why you were passed over. Now, here's the good news. There is compassion this year. This pandemic is explainable. It's an asterisk on most of our resumes and our lives. And I am seeing firsthand through my company and reading from trade stuff that hiring managers are expressing compassion and understanding under the circumstances. But here's the caveat. If you're a job seeker, you must demonstrate the reason for your gap. You have to show that you're working side jobs, part jobs, temp jobs, volunteering, or explaining if you're a caregiver or doing those sorts of things and doing the things to keep your skills as sharp as you can.
Sitting on your butt off the job, Chris, could be an indication to an employer you might try to do the same if they hire you.
I think that's a fair perspective. And I wanted to be certain not to just talk about jobs and things around skills. This recession, pandemic has put households in difficult spots.
Sure enough.
Some people can't work for virtual school or having kids at home or being a caregiver of those that are sick. I think those are explainable circumstances. And, maybe it's next week's discussion point, but there are a lot of folks that have temporarily left the labor market.
Yeah.
And that eventually is going to be a challenge for companies as things come back.
Here we are in the holiday season, Chris. Have we seen an increase with employment this year, even though retail has been focused more online and through virtual shopping?
It's an interesting perspective. Retail is down compared to what retailers thought all the projections would be. And I can't imagine there's a household out here that isn't aware that we're using online tools to shop where we used to go to malls and stores. It's a shift in behavior because of ease, because of things that are happening, but obviously based on current restrictions and best practices to be safe, it's even further accelerated that.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, for every retail job that's been temporarily set aside, I think there's 3 in e-commerce. Now, here's the hardest part about that. And something about Delaware. About 1/3 of all jobs in Delaware are either hospitality or retail.
Right.
And those sectors are down, and those restrictions make it difficult. I think the largest challenge is that it's a large pool of workers, and they're really facing the challenge that they need new skills, and they're really facing that thought that they have to get new roles in different industries because there just isn't certainty that stuff's going to come back and look the same way. I personally think it's going to take until summer, but obviously folks need to work now, and they've got to reskill.
Yeah, and Chris, a lot of people use traditionally this time of year to find a little side hustle, get some bank so they can buy gifts for their friends and family and such. Those short-term opportunities that are usually around, are they around?
It's not like I drive around and look as the way we used to, right? We're all, if we're blessed and okay, we're homebound a bit.
Yeah.
But drive around. I see a lot of now hiring signs. I see a lot of, there are plenty of industries that are seeing a seasonal spike with holidays and work such as that. And as I've mentioned for almost a year with you, if anybody has a need to navigate that and figure that out, just have them, either call Placers or search myplacers.com, and we'd be happy just to help you navigate that. Just because it can be daunting. It's not that you can't just drive down the road and walk into a shop. It's an electronic experience, but I think there is work for those that need it and want it.
And reminder to people listening too that Chris is local. He knows this landscape. You're not talking to someone national here when you're talking to folks at Placer Staffing. I would think, frankly, that knowing that geography as well as you do has got to be a major plus in terms of knowing what's out there and what's not out there for people that are looking right now. So, as always, I appreciate your time, Chris.
Pete, thanks for the invite, and I think whether you're down the beaches or Eastern Shore or Kent, you're right. I think anywhere in Delaware and Eastern Shore, I think we've got a perspective and we've got opportunities to assist people. So thanks for the opportunity to help some folks and appreciate the good work that you do.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Same to you, and we'll talk again soon. All right.